Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing good. I see that we have 30 participants. I was hoping to wait a little bit, but we'll start right away. So I just want to thank you all for being here today. The purpose of this event, we realize that many employees don't connect deeply with their department's mandate. So this segment will clarify the importance of connect with these values and help, I believe, outline a plan of action to identify your organization's values and mission and how we will connect to them. So once again, thank you for coming. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I would like to welcome you to today's segment qui s'intitule « Se connecter aux valeurs et à la mission de votre organisation ». My name is Aban Abdi. I work with the Department of Indigenous Services Canada et je suis ravie d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui et d'être votre modérateur. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which I'm joining you is from the Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds, a gathering place, a traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, Nakota Sioux. I acknowledge that the many First Nations, Métis and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. Je voudrais commencer par reconnaître que le territoire sur lequel je me joins à vous est le territoire du Traité 6, un lieu de rencontre traditionnel, un lieu de rassemblement et une route de déplacement vers les Cris, les Saulteaux, les Pieds Noirs, les Métis, les Dene, les Nakota Sioux. Nous reconnaissons toutes les nombreuses Premières Nations, Métis et Inuit dans les traces embarquées de la terre pendant des siècles. Donc, à fur et à mesure que nous progressons dans la session aujourd'hui, veuillez partager vos questions en utilisant le bouton questions-réponses dans la langue de votre choix. Vous pouvez voter pour les questions que vous voulez, tout en cliquant sur le bouton thumbs up. Today, we have three amazing panelists joining us who will share their expertise. I would like to welcome Minali Copeland, les gestionnaires services des gestions de projet pour Emploi et Développement social Canada. We have Natalie Tate, Strategic Advisor and Anti-Racism and Diversity Secretary at the Department of Justice Canada. And we also have Corporal Susan Harper, Manager at the RCMP. What we're going to do is, would like if we can all share a bit about yourself, and we'll start the question period after. So if you want, we'll start. Melanie, on peut commencer, si tu peux juste parler un peu de vous, et après ça, on va commencer les questions.
Merci beaucoup, Aban. Ça me fait plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui. Alors, comme Aban l'a mentionné, je suis Mélanie Copeland. Je travaille présentement avec l'équipe de transformation à Emploi et Développement social Canada. Auparavant, je travaillais comme directrice par intérim à Transport Canada, gérant l'équipe de transformation là-bas. Salut la gang, si vous êtes sur la ligne. Alors, je suis vraiment contente d'être ici. À temps partiel, j'aide l'Académie numérique avec la livraison de leurs cours. Alors, comment moderniser le service public. Je suis contente aussi aujourd'hui de parler de comment je me fais des liens aux valeurs de mon organisation, puis aussi de mon trajet dans le secteur public à date.
Parfait. Can we have Corporal Susan Harper next?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And I am actually a Cree speaker from Saskatchewan, Métis, Irish Métis, I'm sorry, Irish Cree descent. Sometimes it gets pretty convoluted for me. I wear so many hats. So background, I do have a social work degree. I started in Saskatchewan as a social worker. And I jokingly say now I'm still a social worker, but the difference being I carry a gun now. Same job, different responsibilities. I work at Edmonton headquarters, Indigenous policing units, so my rank is corporal. And so that's how we identify ourselves as well as per rank within our organization. And part of my job is to work with missing and murdered Indigenous women. I have that portfolio. I also work with restorative justice. I work in that component, and I also wear a hat, recruiting, but we wear many hats. We're very flexible that way. I mean, that's my title, but even now I'll be working, I just found out on short notice at a powwow down in Red Deer. So we are many things to many people and try to be as much as we can. And that's what makes us very interesting. So in Cree, I'll say thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Natalie?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Tate. At this moment, I work with the Department of Justice with the Anti-Racism and Anti-Discrimination Secretariat. Prior to that, I worked with FBEC, actually, the Federal Black Employee Caucus. So I was also a strategic advisor on that team as well, part of the first cohort of people who worked with the caucus. And then before that, I was working at Public Services and Procurement Canada. Same kind of role, very similar role, but in that sense, it was for the working to modernize the travel system. So it was the next generation travel team there. And so I think for each of those positions that I had, the thing that drew me to working with them was, you know, obviously with the Anti-Racism, Anti-Discrimination Secretariat, that's something that's close to my heart, someone with lived experience with racism and having people come to you, even like working with FBEC, people coming to you with their stories and their situations and things that they're working to get resolved. It's like, what I'm doing is going to help do that, help get that done. So the next generation of public servants don't have to go through what they're going through right now. And then the people who are already there can get some kind of relief, some kind of resolution to the situations that they find themselves in. So that's where I'm connecting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie, for sharing all of your personal experiences and expertise. So what we're going to do here, I want to ask you questions. So I'll ask all three of you. I'll start with Melanie. So la question va être posée en français. Donc Mélanie, j'aimerais savoir pourquoi est-il important de se sentir connecté aux valeurs et à la mission de notre organisation?
Alors, je trouve que Nathalie l'a tellement bien dit, justement, maintenant qu'elle a réussi à trouver vraiment quelque chose de personnel et quelque chose qui va aider les générations futures dans le secteur public. On veut tous se sentir comme le travail qu'on fait est important et qu'à la fin de la journée, ça fait une différence non seulement au sein de l'organisation, mais vraiment dans la vie quotidienne des Canadiens et Canadiennes. We all want to feel valued, appreciated, like our work is making a difference in the lives of Canadians. And it's really about being at the service of others. Donc, c'est vraiment comment se sentir comme on est capable de servir les autres. Être dans le secteur public, c'est vraiment une expérience unique. Ça m'a pris un peu de temps réaliser à quel point que moi, comme petite personne, j'avais un impact sur les gens autour de moi. Puis on va parler un peu de ça dans les questions à venir. Donc, c'était vraiment pas quelque chose que j'avais réalisé au début comme étudiante coop, comme « Oh wow, j'ai vraiment la chance de contribuer ». Ça m'a pris beaucoup de réflexion et beaucoup de temps. Et vraiment, ça m'a pris certaines expériences vécues, des expériences de travail pour en faire le lien. Alors, c'est ça pour moi, c'est comme ça que je répondrais à cette question. C'est important de trouver le lien à cause de la fin de la journée. On veut savoir que notre temps a été passé de façon que ça a eu un impact sur les gens autour de nous.
Parfait. Et j'aimerais juste demander, donc, ça s'est produite au début de la carrière, donc comment cette connexion a pu être développée?
Absolument, merci pour le segue. Alors, j'ai commencé comme étudiante coop avec le Centre de la sécurité et des télécommunications. Ça a commencé de façon vraiment superficielle. J'étais fan des films James Bond, je voulais toujours être espionne. Alors, je me suis dit, oh wow, j'ai l'occasion de faire un coop avec cette organisation, c'est vraiment cool, je vais avoir ma cote top secrète, là, ça va être une belle histoire à partager avec les gens autour de moi. Mais là, j'ai tombé dans le monde des TI, puis j'ai vraiment commencé à aimer ça. Puis, j'ai commencé à explorer un peu le monde de la gestion de projet, ce qui m'a permis d'éventuellement trouver mon poste avec le service correctionnel. Donc, au début, c'était vraiment, OK, trouver des projets qui m'intéressent. J'avais un bac en commerce, je suis en train de faire ma maîtrise en affaires. C'était vraiment de trouver des opportunités d'appliquer ces connaissances. Éventuellement, je me suis retrouvée avec le programme Corcan, avec le service correctionnel. Et le programme Corcan, c'est un programme d'emploi et d'employabilité pour les délinquants et les délinquantes pour leur permettre de mieux se réintégrer dans la société une fois que leur, what is it called? Their time spent with correctional service has come to an end. C'était vraiment là que j'ai commencé à comprendre l'importance de mon travail dans la vie des Canadiens et des Canadiennes, que le travail que je faisais avec Corcan était pour avoir un impact sur la vie de quelqu'un. C'était une vraiment belle réalisation et je suis contente d'avoir vécu cette expérience et d'avoir visité des délinquants et des délinquantes dans les institutions. Par la suite, quand je suis tombée en congé maternité et j'ai vécu pour une des premières fois être de l'autre côté du service, alors vraiment être la personne qui s'en vient chercher de l'aide auprès du gouvernement fédéraux avec le programme de l'assurance d'emploi. Moi, c'était une expérience formidable avec Service Canada et c'était la crise Phoenix pendant ce temps-là. Alors, je ne savais pas si j'étais pour recevoir ma paye. Il y avait beaucoup de stress. J'étais 9 mois enceinte avec mon premier bébé ever. Donc, le fait que c'était tellement facile de me rendre à Service Canada, ils m'ont aidée. Je suis arrivée avec genre toute ma paperasse puis toutes mes pay stubs. J'étais tellement nerveuse. Écoute, aidez-moi. Ils m'ont pris par la main, ils m'ont tout expliqué, puis le processus était seamless. Donc, être maintenant avec EDSC via Service Canada, c'est ma façon de redonner un peu à l'organisation.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Melanie, for sharing your story. I would like to hear from Natalie. Well, let's say Natalie. Why is it important to connect to your organization values and mission? And if you can also say how this connection happened. Was it early on in your career, or is it something that happened later on? That we would love to hear that.
No problem. I'll answer the second question right off the bat. I would say it happened a little later on, that true connection, because I think you can find connection with anything. Like as long as you're doing something that's in service to someone else or to a group or whoever, you could always find some level of satisfaction and importance in the work that you're doing. But I would say that you can align to or connect with the values of the organization, but if you don't feel like you belong, doesn't matter how much you connect to those values, if that sense of belonging isn't there, then you're going to feel distant, you're going to feel separate, and you're not going to feel that sense of satisfaction. So that's why I would say later on in my career is where I've really felt a stronger connection to the work that I'm doing, because I feel like it's changing something that should have been done a long time ago. Within the public service, but because I work at Justice, a lot of the work, as with other organizations, has that outward facing part to it, right? Because we have lawyers who are providing advice and guidance to other organizations. We're building policies and law and rules, regulations, and things like that that impact Canadians. And so the work that I'm doing to help eradicate and deal with systemic issues of racial discrimination and also discrimination to other groups, you know, the LGBTQ+, you know, persons with disabilities, working on with the advisory groups, you know, Indigenous peoples, you know, it's that type of work where I know it's like we're helping the employees, but it's also going to impact outside the organization. So I think that work is really where my heart's at, because I felt that discrimination within the workplace. I've also felt it outside the workplace. So I think it's really important that we use this time, this moment. I feel like there's this, you know, this galvanization of people who feel allyship to this work and who want to make movement on the work that we're doing. So it's like, let's get it done. You know, it's generational work. It all won't get done this year or within 3 years or 5 years, but let's not use that as an excuse to not move and do everything that we can in this time right now. So I think it's really, really important. But if you feel like that sense of belonging is not there within your organization, then you do have power to make a difference. You know, join your advisory committees, you know, speak to your DM. That person's an email away, and you think you may not have that ability to make that connection, but they're serious about doing the work now. So you have a voice. So I would say use it so that, you know, you're building that connection and you also have the values that you connect to within your organization. So there's so much that you can do, even if you're just beginning in your career, like no matter where you're at. So, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Natalie. Corporal Susan, why is it important to connect to organization values and mission?
I think for me, I really like what Natalie said. Belonging. Another terminology I would use is fitting in. Does this coincide with my personal values? And do I fit in with this organization? Pretty much a similar message, but within our organization, we're paramilitary. So we already have these guidelines, these social norms, these social values, even the language. So you're joining an RCMP culture, which is very unique in and of itself. So when you become a part of a culture, you adopt the social values, you adopt the language, you understand the language, and you try and find the best fit. And within that organization, then you find out, okay, what is my passion within this? Here's clear parameters that I can't influence or change because, for instance, we're guided by the RCMP Act. So within there are guidelines. This is how, as a police officer, you will behave. These are the expectations on you. And this is the mandate you follow. So not a lot of wiggle room, if I can put it that way. However, on a positive note, my bent, individual bent, I call it, as within the organization, you find out what is my interest, because it branches out so many ways like this. You can start specializing in different areas. My specialty was Indigenous policing, and I found naturally that I enjoyed policing in different communities. I worked in BC, I worked in Saskatchewan, I worked in Alberta. Again, a different language. We give letters to each district. I worked in F, Saskatchewan. Alberta is K, BC is E, Division E. And from there, I incorporated myself to understand the culture. And that's where, again, there's a subculture within the culture. So with our organization, you move into a community, and I actually absolutely enjoyed working in BC because the cultures were so different, so diverse. So my personal challenge was I can be an outsider looking in, or I can get involved, engage, understand, and become part of the culture. And when you do that, when you actively engage yourself, familiarize yourself with your environment and know the people and engage and commit to them, there's a lot of payback I found. It was so rewarding for me. So I hope that kind of summarizes it. I can ramble, but I'm trying to be cognizant of the time. Thank you.
That's great. That's awesome. No, thank you so much. The next question is going to go to Mélanie. Quelles sont les valeurs de votre emploi et pourquoi sont-ils importants?
Alors, je le vois un peu de deux façons. Donc, il y a les valeurs un peu au sein du gouvernement du Canada, les valeurs communes, genre le respect, le service aux Canadiens et aux Canadiennes. Il y a les valeurs aussi des différents départements qui vont être pas mal similaires l'un à l'autre. Au service correctionnel, ça résonnait beaucoup à cause, le mot-clé, c'était réhabilitation. Et pour moi, c'est tellement quelque chose qui est proche de mon cœur, de savoir qu'il y a de l'espoir et il y a une habileté dans chacun de nous de continuer à grandir. Et si on peut adopter une approche humaine, une approche empathique avec les gens, les possibilités sont très nombreuses. Il y a aussi les qualités plus distinctes ou plus uniques au sein des différents organismes. Moi, je travaille surtout dans des environnements numériques. Alors, moi, je cherche toujours des environnements auxquels les gens vont adopter les standards numériques, par exemple. Donc, est-ce que c'est un environnement qui collabore, qui travaille de façon ouverte? Est-ce que les gens travaillent de près avec les utilisateurs des services? Est-ce qu'ils sont en train de vraiment faire des efforts pour briser les silos et travailler ensemble, sortir de leur cubicule virtuel et aller jaser avec un vrai Canadien ou une vraie Canadienne? Qu'est-ce qui se passe avec le service? Comment était votre expérience? Qu'est-ce que je peux faire pour vous aider? Alors, vraiment un service mindset. Je suis à la recherche de ça constamment. Et vraiment, pour parler un peu du point de respect et d'inclusivité, pour moi, c'est pas juste le respect comme la politesse, c'est vraiment un sens qu'on apprécie les perspectives diverses. On va inviter les gens à la table pour faire part des discussions et nous aider à prendre les bonnes décisions. Puis on parlait justement il y a quelques minutes, comment est-ce qu'on sent une fois qu'il y a un peu un petit disconnect entre nos valeurs personnelles et valeurs de l'organisation. Il y a plusieurs choses que tu peux faire. On vit des différentes saisons. Alors, pour moi, quand j'étais au service correctionnel, je me sentais comme j'avais vraiment fait un beau travail. Puis c'était le temps de moi d'aller chercher une expérience différente. Étant nouvelle mère, je cherchais un différent environnement. C'était pour des décisions vraiment personnelles. Alors, je me suis dirigée vers Transport Canada pour voir comment je peux les aider avec leur transformation numérique. Alors, de passer vraiment d'un extrême de « OK, je suis en train d'aider les délinquants et les délinquantes », puis maintenant, je suis en train d'aider les voyageurs dans le système de transport. Comme c'est tellement différent, mais j'ai été capable de faire une sorte de connexion, car à la fin de la journée, je me sentais comme, OK, j'ai fait la bonne décision, je me sens comme je peux quand même contribuer. Donc, j'avais vu quelqu'un sur Twitter qui disait, écoute, j'ai tellement d'intérêt, tout m'intéresse, toutes les organisations ont des vraiment belles valeurs, je ne sais pas où commencer, puis je me sens comme je m'implique dans tout, puis je n'ai vraiment pas assez de temps dans la journée. Donc, je veux juste renforcer le point que c'est correct de changer d'idée, c'est correct d'aller d'une chose à l'autre et dans nos vies, nos préférences et nos besoins vont changer. Alors, c'est toujours clé, le thème clé, c'est de toujours essayer de trouver une sorte de lien avec l'organisation, mais c'est correct de changer un peu de thème au fil du temps.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup, Mélanie. Ça, c'était une bonne réponse. So my next question here is for Natalie. I would like to know, what if my organization values doesn't match up with my values? So navigating through the hurdles. How did you came about that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, kind of like what Melanie was saying about it's okay to change your mind, it's okay to change jobs. If you find that you're in a position where you're just not finding that connection, you're not getting that sense of satisfaction from your work, it's okay to change. There's so much to do within the federal government, so many different job titles, organizations that you can go to. And there's also opportunities, actually, now that I think of it, to do assignments. You can request an assignment to go somewhere else, and you can search out these things for yourselves as well. You don't have to wait for them to come to you. There's also assignments in community that it's even possible. So there's a range of different things that are at your fingertips if you just do like a little bit of research. So the other thing is finding a piece within that organization, as Corporal Suzanne was saying, that does link with your values. So like while you're there, make it worth your while and find something that does. Even within your team, there's always something that you can link yourself to make that work meaningful. So if it's, serving your clients, serving your team, and also, having that really honest discussion with your manager about, different things that maybe you see that could be of a benefit to your team that's not already there, something that you can leverage, something that you can lead, and maybe try exercising a different skill set that you haven't exercised already. And maybe that could be that thing that helps you to feel that connection and that sense of satisfaction. But always find there's always something that you can tie yourself to. But at the end of the day, there's so much space for you to move and grow within the public service that you can find something else as well.
Thank you, Natalie. Corporal Susan, I have a question for you. So what if the organization isn't living up to its values or mission? What can I do? Or do I need to make modifications? Or can the organization make the modifications?
That's actually a very interesting question. So again, going back to my organization, speaking from that, there are there are parameters that, yes, you cannot have an influence per se. You can change the dynamics because they're set. And those are our guidelines, A, that keep us safe and also give us direction. Where's our vision? Where are we going with it? So you have a choice. Do you go with that? Do you, first of all, I guess going back with our process, and I'm in recruiting, so I can kind of address this as well, is with our process, we challenge the applicants to say, is this going to be a fit for you? And this is where, here's that core values. Flexibility is big. Are you prepared to move across country? Are you prepared to do, like, you will lose a bit of, loosely speaking, individuality for the common good of the organization's goals, visions, and values. So there will be I call it a cognitive dissonance where, well, we're not really working together here because I'm running into a bit of a conflict, internal conflict. For example, sometimes members will have the challenge of, can I put my family through this? Because there's the reality, we're going to be moving. Can my spouse handle this? Can my children handle this? There's always that challenge. So my best response and how I've made it work within this organization is key flexibility. I have to recognize the fact that A, I will move. B, there are options, as Natalie stated, within the organization you can start to branch towards. And I think if you put it at the individual level, it's a question of how can I develop myself within this organization? And we use the term subject matter expert. What that means is you are responsible to develop a knowledge, skills, and abilities. I'm giving you language that we use, but I'll put it in English, not the acronyms we always use, but it's the onus is on the individual member to develop themselves. Every year we call it an individualized learning plan. Within that learning plan, you identify what is it that I want to be, what is my goal, and how can I get there? And then you measure it in steps. So to personalize it at my level, my objective was, well, I can focus on Indigenous policing and become a subject matter expert in that. That's been my stream that I followed, only twofold. It fits for me. I'm passionate about it, and I can influence change within that little sphere of influence that I have and still work within the organization and become a nice fit and a contributor. So those are the key values that I embrace. And I just got to step back for a second because I wanted to add something else. Fitting in. Oh yeah. So that's why if you look at restorative justice on my portfolio, what I did was, using that as an example, was that I took training. I read up on it. I wanted to become familiar with it. So subsequently, I'm now on a restorative justice team nationally with the RCMP that we do a monthly check-in and we do feedback. So I'm not going to say I'm a subject matter expert, but I'm certainly well versed with it and I enjoy it. So again, I'm trying to stay focused. So the values, you work within the values, but you also find out what are my individual values that'll fit with the big picture. If it's not a fit, it's really okay to say, again, going back to what Natalie said, maybe this isn't a fit for me. Maybe it's time to move on and find another fit. So our organization has a probationary period, a recruiting training period. So there's phases where we ask you, is this a fit for you? Do you still want to continue? I mean, I can talk about my personal life, how I sort of morphed into an RCMP officer. I certainly wasn't planning on it. I was supposed to go, I'll end with this. I was supposed to go to Calgary on a master's degree. And I thought, well, I better get my son going on a career. He's in high school. So I thought, well, I'll just go see the RCMP, see if maybe they can be interested in recruiting my son when he's done. So I'm kind of trying to get him ready. And recruiting people looked at me and said, okay, you're female, you're Indigenous, you have a degree. Why don't you apply? To which I said, yeah, I'm not interested. I already have plans. But then I started thinking, well, I can do a security clearance with the RCMP level, and that'll get me into, my career plan was to get your master's, do the security clearance, and then work for the government. Well, guess what? 20 years later, I sit here and I'm still enjoying my job. So you just never know. But thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Corporal Susan. And I just want to say, and I should have said this before as well, if the other panelists have something to add as well, please feel free to do it and go from there. And I think I'll just add something really quickly that Natalie said. I don't know why I'm saying this super late, but nonetheless, things come in as they go. So when you said try to find something within your organization that your values do match, I really agree with that. As a person of faith, I feel like active service is number one. So working in Indigenous Services Canada to me was okay, I have to make sure I'm always helping. I have to make sure I'm always doing this. So I just want to point that out. That was amazing what you said, and I totally agree with you on that. So thank you.
I also wanted to add on to what Corporal Susan was saying, and to answer your question as well. I would say yes. If your organization's values don't match up with yours, and you see an opportunity for change, I would say like grab onto that. You have your advisory committees that you can familiarize yourself with. So at Justice, we have an advisory committee for Indigenous peoples, for visible minorities, for persons with disabilities, also for the LGBTQ2+, which they go with it under another name within our organization, but there's all these organizations that you can join. We also have a Black employee network. So, I mean, that network saw something that was missing, and so they created it. So that's definitely within the realm of possibilities, right? So, and they use those avenues, those committees to push for change. Those committees are consulted on HR plans, on our employment equity plan. So there's lots of room for movement and change and things that you can advocate for within those committees.
Perfect. Thank you, Natalie. So the next question I have is for Melanie. So what happens if the organization, doesn't live up to its values or mission? What can I do?
Thanks very much for the question. So really similar to what the other panelists have been speaking to about the ability to kind of navigate the public service. What a blessing that we have such a diverse range of mission statements and job types and roles and things like that, and easy to kind of jump from one ship to the next. So for me, the aha moment was really in 2013. I had been in the same job for 5 years. It was my first job in the public service. And I didn't realize there were other options out there. I didn't realize how easy it was to actually go from one department to another, or just laterally from one team to another within the same organization. And so I'm hoping that today those channels are more known, those opportunities are more common knowledge. For me, 2013 was a very dark year. I felt very trapped in the role where I was, and I no longer saw that fit between my values and the organization's values. And so I was trying to control my environment. And the big lesson that I learned was I need to find an environment that already lines up and matches with my values. You can probably hear my toddler crying. I apologize for that. He's at home sick today. And so when I was able to find that spot with Corcan, I felt like I had my motivation back. I was refreshed. Everything that was disconnected started to make sense again. And that was thanks to the right leadership, the right team environment, the right mission statement, where at the end of the day, I felt like I made a real difference. Je voulais aussi mentionner quelque chose que Corporal Susan avait mentionné concernant son profil, et ils l'ont invité à appliquer comme agente avec la GRC. Je voulais mentionner comme laissez jamais personne vous bloquer d'atteindre vos objectifs, d'atteindre vos rêves. Je parlais de cette année 2013. C'est la même année où que mon gestionnaire, pendant notre rencontre où que j'identifiais mes plans de carrière, m'avait dit « Oh, Mélanie, je ne pense pas que je mettrais être gestionnaire dans tes plans de carrière. Qu'est-ce qui arrive si tu tombes enceinte et tu veux des enfants? » Donc, vraiment, pour moi, ça m'avait vraiment découragée de me focusser sur ce plan de carrière-là. Puis, je me trouvais vraiment coincée, illimitée. Donc, it's a big ocean. The GC is a big ocean. The opportunities are plentiful, pour moi, qu'est-ce qui m'a sauvée aussi, c'était de m'établir des réseaux informels au sein de l'organisation avec mon networking, mais aussi les médias sociaux avec Twitter et LinkedIn. Maintenant, je me sens comme j'ai toujours des options. Je me sens jamais coincée. Alors, c'est vraiment un bon feeling.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Mélanie. Alors, la prochaine question, c'est plus pour, it's more for everyone. And so I just want to say, maybe we'll start with Corporal Susan this time. So we want to know, how much flexibility do you have to navigate the system while staying true to yourself? And how much time to develop yourself and personal growth?
Goodness, that's a loaded question.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, how much flexibility do you have to navigate the system? That's a good, well, I think it's very individualized. So I don't know if I can give a generalized answer. I can only talk from my perspective. For me, flexibility was, what are your learning goals? And where do you anticipate being at this, say, 3 years from now? I'm always setting goals. So it's always been my next step is, to promote to the next level, which is sergeant. So that's my next goal. I'll always have a goal in front of me. If I achieve it, well, we reassess again. It's just that process you do in your career plan, because you can't predict the future. All you can do is be best ready for it. And so in the interim, the only thing I would say is develop yourself, educate yourself. And what I did in my career path was I looked at people that exhibited really strong leadership goals. My supervisors, those that were like, I like how he or she deals with human resources aspect. I like how they interact. So I watch and I learn. So those are mentors around you as well. On a side note, I'm also a mentor. I forgot to mention that for recruiting as well. So for new applicants, what I've done before is I walk them through the process, because it's a convoluted process when you start applying for the RCMP. So many levels to it. So many branches, like Melanie was saying, you can just go like this and then get lost in the process. So one thing I would suggest is find a mentor, someone that can walk you through it. There's lots out there. And find someone who's passionate about their job, because a lot can go back to attitude as well. You can have a really positive attitude and be such a contributor. And you know the other side to that. But so there's my challenge: develop, look at leaders, and find out what moves me. Always do a check-in with yourself, because you're always growing and developing. Well, what I liked before maybe is changing now.
Okay, thank you again. I'll ask Melanie, how much flexibility do you have to navigate the system while staying true to yourself, and how much time to develop yourself and personal growth?
Absolutely. So I can speak from mom life, as you heard earlier. So for me, the way that I kind of find time for myself is early in the morning before the family wakes up. And usually I'll spend about an hour just working on stuff about my career development. So maybe I'm updating my resume. Maybe I'm working on an upcoming speaking engagement. Maybe I'm working on a proposal, work related, but I know will open a lot of doors for me. And every day, if you're putting that little bit of extra time towards something that will open up possibilities for you, open up doors, it is so worth it. It is certainly not something that will fall on your lap. So trying to find kind of your dream job within the GC, it does take a lot of care and attention, networking, and making sure, like Corporal Susan said, and Natalie's been saying, find yourself those mentors and those sponsors that will help give you the keys to how to navigate the system. So for me, it's just taking that time in the day. And folks will often say, you know, how do you find time to kind of connect online as well with social media? You know, your days are kind of filled. I always have my screen open. I'm always checking, seeing what other change agents are up to in the GC. There's a great network out there on Twitter. This is how I connected with the Federal Youth Network. And so try to find those like-minded individuals. You'll notice that folks are really welcoming. They're very, very friendly. We've got such a great community in the GC. And it will give you those hints about, you know what, this group right here is doing some really good work. I think you might want to chat with them and see if it's a right fit.
Awesome. Thank you again, Melanie. Natalie, so how much flexibility do you have to navigate the system while staying true to yourself, and how much time to develop yourself and personal growth?
Well, the take on that question that I'm going to go with is, for me, there is no flexibility in being true to yourself. Like, that has to be number one, right? You don't ever bend your values in order to fit into some kind of mold, or downplay what you truly believe in order to fit in. Like, I would never do that. Not to say I've never done that, but I would never do that going forward because it's important to know who you are and to stay firm on that. So I'd say that first and foremost. I totally agree with what Melanie and Corporal Susan have been saying about networking and finding a mentor, sponsor, someone that you connect with. They're two very different things. So like mentorship is someone that you can go to. I have an issue, how do you suggest I navigate this? A sponsor is a person's going to be like, I know Melanie Copeland, and she's great. I've seen her work, and oh my gosh, you said you have that job, talk to Melanie. Like that's the person to go to. That's what your sponsor is going to do for you. So you need to make sure that you have both and multiple so that it's easier for you to navigate the system. Because sometimes the HR programming or the processes, those can be very convoluted and difficult to understand, especially when you're new to government. Even when you're at, I've been in government for 15 years now, and it can still be confusing. So, having someone who can help you navigate that is really, really important. And even when you have those mentors and sponsors will be important for you, especially in cases where, and this happens, you have, like in Melanie's case, someone who's not supportive. And that could happen where you'll have a manager or director, someone who isn't supportive and who isn't, helping you with your goals that you've put in front of them, which is what a manager should be doing. It should be coaching you. He, she, or they should be, coaching you in what it is that you're trying to achieve. And so absolutely, networking, mentorship, sponsorship, use your GC campus, use your LinkedIn, use your socials, like Melanie was alluding to before. And if you do all those things and you take that time for yourself and invest in yourself and ensure that every day you're doing that, no matter what it is that you're trying to do, no matter what challenges or barriers you find that are in front of you, you'll be able to work around, over, through, under, like you'll find your way. So that's what I'll say for that.
Those are great advices. Thank you so much, Natalie. We have one last question here,
Susan?
which is, and I think this one is important. I'm sure everyone would love to know. What's one resource or book or podcast would you recommend about this topic? It's beautiful that we have these conversations today. Actually, sorry about that. I think Susan wanted to, Susan wanted to add. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Actually, I think one thing sometimes we forget about is we're so committed to our organization. How about a work-life balance? And I know in my job, and I remember the light bulb went off for me. We had a presenter, psychologist, retired police officer, Martin, oh my gosh, I forgot his name, Dr. Gil Martin, and it's called the Law Enforcement Handbook, which we use within our organization. I read that, highly recommend it. And he talked about the work-life balance. Find something that is totally not. What happens with our culture is RCMP tend to hang out with RCMP, socialize with RCMP because we speak the same language, but we're still in the work environment. So what he challenged us to do was find something outside your organization, join a church group, join a social group, find a hobby that separates that line between work and home, and then you're able to disconnect. And when you're ready, you have that mindset again. My 2 bits.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the next one, I guess I'm assuming it's really important because we're having these beautiful conversations today. It's amazing, but it's almost like you want to record this. Okay, yeah, she said this. Yeah, she said that. But how can I how can I connect with everything you guys have said? What sources or book or podcast would you recommend about this topic? Natalie, go for it. Natalie, unless you're searching for something, I'll let you slide. Okay.
No, I'm like, it's such a good question. I'm like, there's this book, I think it's called Heart Code, but I wanted to verify. It's such a good book. I'm buying it for my daughter for us to work through it together. But I wanna just double check the name so I'm giving you the right information. I'll put it in the chat actually. But I would definitely recommend this book. So I'm just going to go squirrel away and find it for you guys.
Is it the Heart's Code? I'm searching right now. Is it the Heart's Code? Maybe not.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
I can certainly point to a few things. So I think part of this conversation today is about really knowing yourself as a human being. So I would recommend any kind of those personality assessments. I did the Myers-Briggs assessment when I was in university, and there were a few aha moments there for me. It helped me understand the kind of jobs that line up to my personality and the kind of situations that kind of go against my natural working style. The second one is Insights Profile. This is the personality colors. And I only did this one recently. I think it was like 2019. And it was there that I realized that in terms of colors, I'm very green. I care a lot about the work that I do. It was a very big aha moment. I always thought I was like Miss Extrovert, bubbly personality, but really what came out in the assessment was I actually genuinely care about what happens at the end of the day. The last little thing I'm going to say is a bit of a plug, shameful plug for Forward 50 happening November 2nd to 5th. Now, if you've got an idea about a change you'd like to see in the GC, a policy change, if you want an opportunity to network with public servants across the GC and other countries, check out G Factor Forward 50. Type it up. You can get a free ticket to Forward 50, but it also gives you that networking opportunity that we've all been talking about during this session. So shameful plug, please forgive me. That's it.
Awesome, thank you. In regards to that test, what was it, the personality test? I did it.
You did it too?
I did it, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it will come out. You'll get a full written assessment, and it's like reading a novel about yourself. It's kind of eerie, yeah.
Depending on which tests you take, the colors do change. Sorry about that, Corporal Susan. But I did it, and I realized I'm a blue. I love helping. I love people. And I'm like, okay, obviously that's so me. So I was pretty happy about that. Thank you. Go ahead, Corporal Susan.
Just another along the same line of thought is there's also that one, and I couldn't tell you there's this 4 squares, but what stands out for me is, are you a task-oriented person, or are you stronger in a people orientation? So you probably can understand that. So the key is knowing who you are, understanding yourself to see how you best fit into the equation, because that's where you're always going to go back to is checking in, finding out, okay, what is it I do? Because you will lose yourself in the process. And you will morph into all these people until you almost lose yourself. You got to take time out to say, okay, what are my values? Who am I? And where am I going again? You need to always take that time out to do that.
Totally agree. Thank you so much, everyone, for answering this question. So now we're going to go to the audience. So there's I believe, about 6 questions. And I do have the first question, and it is, how do I know what my work values are? Is there a tool that you can use to identify them? Melanie, I feel like the way you have it ready.
I'm just nodding, right? That is a really good question to ask right at the interview stage, because it's just as important for the hiring manager to assess if it's the right fit than it is for you to assess if this organization is the right fit. Une bonne question que tu peux poser aussi, c'est pendant la pandémie, pendant COVID, qu'avez-vous fait pour supporter vos employés? Ça, c'est une question super importante. Ça va te montrer à quel point l'organisation valorise les êtres humains qui travaillent pour la mission, pour l'organisation. Et autre chose aussi, tu peux certainement aller vérifier le site web de l'organisation ou du département ou de l'agence. C'est quelque chose qu'on nous encourageait fortement à faire pendant mes placements coop. Alors, même avant une entrevue, d'aller se familiariser avec la mission de l'organisation, tu peux aller vérifier c'est quoi les valeurs organisationnelles, ça devrait être sur leur site web. C'est ça, et n'hésite pas, tu peux demander à tes contacts de voir c'est quoi l'ambiance, c'est quoi que les gens, de façon informelle, vont promouvoir ou valoriser au sein de l'organisation.
Thank you, Melanie. I deeply apologize. I think Jen McDougall wanted to answer this live. Of course, I was not paying attention to it. I deeply apologize. But if you're listening, well, of course you're listening, Jen. I'm deeply apologize for this, but I hope this was satisfactory.
What?
Hello?
I think you're okay, Haban. I think she meant that we would respond live.
Oh, I see.
Instead of typing it out. You're good.
I have to say this is my first time doing this, so I'm love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you again. Thank you, Marcella, for confirming this. Do you want to answer, Natalie, in regards to that question, or are we okay? I believe. Yeah,
I think another question that would be important to ask as well is to find out what the department is doing with regard to inclusion, diversity, equity. You know, what kind of initiatives are taking place? Do they have policies in place? I would definitely ask that type of a question, especially if you have values that align with these things, right? Whether you're a person who's a strong ally, and also just to make sure that the work that's being done, if that is something that you're very much interested in, that the work that they're doing is not just, you know, performative, just, you know, check boxes, but no real intention of making a change and making a difference within the organization, something that will help to transform culture. So definitely that equity, diversity, anti-racism, anti-oppression, cultural transformation piece is something that I would ask about.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. And I think it's important, especially for me, for example, I think it happened way later. It definitely did not happen in the beginning. And in the wake of course, George Floyd, of course, a lot of things came into where you're really mindful of everything else that's happening. And so I agree. Corporal Susan, I believe you did answer that question.
I think I did.
Awesome, awesome. So we're going to go to the next question. So I have here, it says, how long should you taught in a job that is not a good fit? Is there an expectation that you stay in a role for a certain duration of time? Well, that's a really good question. Melanie.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of experience, and being kind of the young, naive person that I stayed way too long to the point where I was sick. And so I don't think there's any expectations. You come first, your well-being comes first. I remember an administrative assistant joining our team in another department, and she wasn't with us for very long. And she shortly made the decision that she needed to be at home with her family. She was battling some health issues. And so she took that decision for herself. I've known others that, you know, they were struggling finding that next stage in their career. So they were going through an application blitz, and sure enough, every opportunity came at them at the same time. So they didn't end up being very long with us until they jumped to the next place. The only thing you want to be mindful of is if it is a good workplace and these references could be of use to you, you have to use a little bit of tact, right? You can list the pros and cons. You can do that exercise with yourself, with the folks around you that you can have, you know, confidence that they'll give you sound advice. So I think I would recommend don't do anything too quickly. You can certainly think about it and talk about it with others, but at the end of the day, your journey is what matters. You matter.
Exactly. Thank you, Melanie. Natalie, would you like to add?
I think Melanie just, she answered it really, really well. I wouldn't really add anything else. Yeah, like you don't want to wait till your mental health is suffering, because the road back to health is a long one. So do not underestimate that. I've worked with people who've taken years and are still suffering from some mental health issues. So if you're in a situation that is unhealthy, get out as soon as you can.
Agreed.
But with everything else, like Melanie said, but if that's not the case and it's just not a right fit, then, talk to your mentors, talk to your network. And as she said, know that these people, like the people, your circle, I call it your circle, that your circle that you build around you is a strong one. It's people who are going to give you sound advice, who are not just going to agree with everything that you want to do, but they'll challenge you, right? So, yeah, but definitely you first.
Awesome. Corporal Susan, would you like to add, or we can move on to the next question?
Just a brief thing that I would really stress is, I know in our organization, it's not a reflection of personal failure if you decide this is not for me. Give yourself permission to say, no, this is not a fit, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's better to find out early on. And I'm going back to the other ladies as well. As a social worker, I plowed through to try and make it work, but it did cost me my health in the end. And that was, like Melanie was saying, unfortunately, I paid the price with physical health. I started getting sick. And so did a recovery. I thought, this is not working. I tried to make it work. I am not a fit here. So let's move on. So I found something that works. It is work, but it is working.
Perfect. Thank you. I do have one last question. The question is, I took the job I was offered to get a foot in the government. I don't really connect to my role as a program officer. I would like to feel I'm making a difference. How do I start?
I think this is where I always recommend to folks, no matter what level you're starting at, no matter where you start, you do a really good job. And you let people know you're doing a really good job. So you make your work very visible and you're very consistent about it. And that will open up doors to others seeing your work, seeing if there's opportunities for you to join their team. And you also keep an eye out on jobs.gc.ca. You get to know the teams around you. If they've got any kind of vacancies, you can have some casual coffee chats as well with hiring managers. I don't know how many cold calls I've made for, hey, do you want to have like a casual coffee chat? Wondering if you'd like to talk about some possible right fits. It works really well if you're looking for kind of at-level opportunities. And so, yeah, do a really good job, do good work, make it visible. You can kind of gloat about it on social media. There's this one particular person working at D&D in comms right now. She is killing it on LinkedIn. And the key there is she's done really good work and she posts about it all the time. And now she's got this beautiful network around her.
Amazing. Thank you, Melanie. Would you like to add, Natalie?
I think it goes back to a lot of what has already been said in terms of building those networks, having a sponsor. Again, I agree with what Melanie was saying in terms of talking to people. Like, even if you're not sure you're interested in a job with somebody, have that chat and be like, I'd like just to get to know more about what, your team does. And people are very open. You'd be surprised. That's why things like LinkedIn and GC Connects are such good resources in order to just have those conversations, shoot people an email. A lot of people are very happy to talk to you about what they do. And it's a compliment, that you actually chose to reach out to them. You could have talked to so many other people. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that you can do in order to discover where you want to be. Look within your organization, look within other organizations, and join things. There's so many groups out there as well, which would give you exposure. So doing all those things will put you in a position where you're never stuck. You know, like there should always be a plan, you know, like have your plan, figure out what your plan is, you know, reassess the plan every few months or so. But if you have all those connections and you're talking to people and you're exposing yourself, as Melanie was saying, you won't be stuck. You won't be stuck. Even when you have barriers, you'll work your way around and through and under and over.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Natalie. Corporal Susan. You're good? Okay. But just to add it to what Natalie said, job shadowing, I think it's number one, especially when you're new to the government and you're trying to navigate through what are your skill sets and whatnot. So thank you all for answering all these questions. I have to say this was very informational and eye-opening for most of us, I am sure. I believe we are done with questions here. Just have to make sure we don't have any more questions. Nope, we don't. So we will end the session, but before we end, I just want to thank you all. Je vais vous remercier d'être venus aujourd'hui. Be sure to sign up for the next event, Finding for Development Support with Michelle Elliott, Jennifer McDougall, and Charlene Liver-Scott. Is there any last few words you guys? I just wanted to tell you all, thank you again. Honestly, this was amazing, and I took a lot. And just to let you know, I just had a Twitter account because of this event. I never had a Twitter before, but I can totally see why. I totally agree. The whole networking, making sure you're connecting the dots, you're exposing yourself and all of that. So I really want to thank you all. I shouldn't have said this, but it's okay. You'll know. I'm no longer a ghost here. I'm here. If there's anything else, I want to thank you all. Thank you all for coming. For those that are listening as well, I wish you a very good day. Stay safe and healthy. And thank you for all the great work everyone is doing here. Thank you for all my panelists for sure. And thank you, Marcella, as well, for assisting me in all through this. Merci beaucoup. Passez une belle journée.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.